Broadcasting live in geosynchronous orbit with eccentricity and non-specific inclination, The Situation Room, with your hosts Rocci, John, and Scotty.
You see, and then we can go to the paranormal aspect. If one is witnessing either an apparition or an EVP or AVP or whatever,
right.
The VIP and so forth, during an NDE and an OBE. All these abbreviations, man.
I'm the CEO of IPR, and I had an NDE, but I really think it was an OBE.
Well, you know,
I was
think,
recorded on
your
AVP.
EVP, but I was an MPV in my own OBD. My OBGYN wasn't mine because I don't need one.
But seriously, do you think that the paranormal activity or aspects of it could be related or attributed to OBEs and NDEs, where the physical body remains, of course, either in trauma or whatever status it's in. What?
Sorry.
What was so funny?
I'm sorry, John. I'm sorry to interrupt you so rudely when you're in the middle of a serious thought.
I'm sorry, I've just read it as well.
Laird says the only NDE he's ever witnessed was, and I think it's safe to say this, was Graham at the Paradigm Symposium when his clicker wasn't working. Sorry to interrupt you so rudely. I should have been on mute, and I wasn't, and I looked at something that made me laugh while you were talking, and I do apologize.
No, you don't have to apologize for laughter, brother. Laughter is God's gift to us, if there is ever one. So if the physical body, the biological form, is in some kind of trauma, some kind of status, the spiritual or the consciousness. Now, from my point of view, you've heard me talk about my theories on what I like to term as the external consciousness, or the construct of consciousness itself. Mm-hmm. If that is able to leave the body in a kind of physical format, could it then be witnessed as a paranormal experience? I throw that to the floor, sir.
No, I think there's ways. Man, that's, Scotty, what do you think, man?
Yes.
That's a good question. That's a good question.
I'm not as stumped on that as that may have sounded. I think yes. Let's go back to the example of the remote viewer who saw the security guard, who startled him, and it startled him. Did that security guard leave with a story saying, I saw a shadow figure in the file room, or something like that? Right. We don't know because there's no way to quantify that. Our paranormal experiences, are they, when we see or experience those things, what are we actually seeing or experiencing?
No, I'm only saying they're aspects of the paranormal experience, not all paranormal experiences.
Right, and
aspects
I understand that.
Because, we've got to be very careful here. Because, again, I refer to the physical form, the biological form. If that's remaining in some kind of status, either induced, voluntary, or involuntary, does then the external constructed consciousness, is that able to leave the body to allow the biological form to repair itself or heal in nanoseconds? Does it leave the body for whatever purpose it's leaving the body? Can that then be experienced by the living?
Yes. Why not? And I don't mean to be flippant with that answer, but seriously, why not? Why could that not be experienced?
I agree.
Perhaps that is explanation for what many people might experience.
We hear of people when their grandma's dying, or they have a sibling that's dying, or their child is dying, or their husband's dying, and they're on the other side of the planet, and they have a visitation. Now, I know we're veering off from near-death experience and so forth, but there is a visitation. There is a communication between one physical form and another physical form. That takes place at the point of death. Has the consciousness, the external constructed consciousness, left the physical form and made the journey to commune with another living form? I think this is possible, and I think this is a good explanation towards what we're talking about.
Can I tell you a story real quick?
Please do.
Go for it. Does it involve cats and squirrels?
It could if we really used our imagination.
Cool.
But
cool. Okay. Go for it.
Doggies and ponies too.
It's perfect that you brought that up because.
Have you ever seen a grown man naked? Oh, I'm sorry. Carry on.
This isn't about gladiators, is it?
Wow.
Oh man. I used to have a dog.
He is
called Shelby.
Italian. He's Roman.
Don't
Go
call
ahead,
me
Rocky.
Shirley.
Sorry, ignore us. Just go ahead. You go right ahead. Talk over us.
This girl, she's a friend of mine. She lost her husband. He was murdered. She didn't know this at the time. This is weird. This was just the other day we talked about this. The day before, this was in a different state. He was down in the Midwest, and we're kind of northern. She had a dream that there was a train. This train was coming through, and he was there, and he jumped off, and he was extremely dirty, which fit the circumstances he was in. He came into the house, and she had to wash his feet, and he told her that it was time for him to go. And he left, and he ran, and he jumped back on the moving train, and then about 2 hours later, she got a phone call that he just passed away.
Now, had he passed away just then, or had he passed away 2 hours previously when she'd had the experience?
He just recently passed away, so he was technically probably still hooked up to equipment, but technically he was still alive when she had this dream. Physically, he was still alive. Was his soul still in his body? Who knows? But I found it a fascinating story. She's a very rational person. It was a dream. Was there more than just a dream? Who knows? But I found
Well, that's a big question. I've had visitations and dreams myself, and you never know. Was that just a dream, or was it a visitation?
And what does the feet thing? What does that resemble anything? The washing of the feet.
And just said he had dirty feet. Maybe that meant he was running around barefoot.
I mean, if I was to die now, I would visit Scotty and get him to wash my feet. I haven't washed them in 6 weeks.
That's disgusting.
That's what would wake me up. I'd be going, what the hell? Cat out of the box? What is it?
I would also give you one of my Rocky Stucky toenails on a chain as a good luck charm.
Could you actually transfer physical things over, though, to me? Like a necklace, a Rocky Stucci toenail necklace. Could you actually give me that from the afterlife?
Well, it wouldn't be the afterlife. It's still this life, really, technically.
I'm actually growing a couple for you guys right now, so.
You're just disgusting.
He's working on our Christmas present.
Special orders.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. But no, all joking aside, going back to the dream state, if you're visited in a dream, and I want to get onto a subject which relates to this, but I'm afraid I can't.
Yeah, it'll be like 10 minutes.
No, it won't be, because I cannot divulge the information, so I'm sorry.
Oh, all right.
I'm going to skip around it to give you some idea. There are certain aspects that state that when one is in a dream state, normal dream state, that one external constructed consciousness does actually leave or can leave the body at will to conduct certain tasks. I'm skipping around this, and I may not be making much sense because
I'm following you.
Okay. When those tasks are completed, one returns to the physical body. In some instances, what is referred to as a red line, I've heard said many times, is left. It's like one could imagine.
Is this like the
Hansel and Gretel?
I was going to say, is this like the watered down version in the stories and the movies and all of that? That I have unfinished business and I must go back.
No.
All right.
This is something that I've been a part of for many years. What?
All right. Moving on.
Moving on swiftly. So when one goes and conducts one business, when one comes back, one can leave a trail of breadcrumbs, which then allows others to follow or to come in aggression. And so one has to be careful to eradicate those breadcrumbs. If that is the case amongst us, the living, why should that not be a case amongst those who are not necessarily genned up on that kind of information or that way inclined? And so when they are at a near-death experience or on the cusp of death itself, the sheer adrenaline rush, the sheer synaptic rush of the brain enables them to complete that task by visiting loved ones on various different levels, either through the dreamscape or through physical interaction. I know that Mother mentioned in the chat room that Led had a visitation during a dream, while the people who were awake didn't have any communication. And again, that's all part and parcel of it, isn't it?
Well, it is. These are those things that, once again, all we have are anecdotal stories. You can do as much research as you want on this stuff. You can look at the, what the endorphins are doing in the body. You can do what the chemical reactions are going through. But nobody really knows without artificially inducing some kind of death, which I think is pretty dangerous.
Very dangerous.
Because what if you can't pull out of that? You've just murdered somebody. You don't know when somebody's going to go into a near-death experience unless you say, can I get permission for this guy who's been in a comatose state? Can I get permission to go hook up some electrodes? See if we can revive him. It gets goofy, trying to figure out scenarios. There is absolutely no way to conduct experimentation. There's no way to do anything other than say, I might be able to artificially induce something that looks like a comatose state and see what happens, but then that's not really the same thing.
Right.
It's artificial. And is there really that if it has something to do with the induction of the stress of the moment of death or the stress of the illness or whatever, if a guy says, look, I'm going to give you a shot, it's going to mimic a comatose state, it's perfectly safe, you're going to wake up when I wake you up, and we're going to experiment, there's not that same trauma, and therefore not that same stimuli to create that chemical reaction. So there you're left with, again, all that bibble babble to say, there's no way to test it. There's no way to know for sure. All you got is anecdotal stories and experiences.
But you can apply that same logic, though, brother, to the Bible and those stories of resurrection and so forth. They're anecdotal.
Yes, of course they are.
And so we fall back again on our faith and our belief in the various ways of our forefathers and what we've been taught and what we've been handed down to us. And we have to take that on a kind of faith value that we can achieve certain things in our life, which falls within the realms of paranormal, superstitious, supernatural, superhuman to a certain extent.
That'll be me.
Again, it is. You're quite correct. It's all anecdotal because there is no way within our sphere, and I'm being very careful with my words here, within our sphere of influence that we can prove that with scientific experimentation within public domain.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that, and I can agree with that.
That doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like you say with all this.
In non-public domain.
Yes.
Honestly, I absolutely believe that some of these experiences are real. I absolutely believe that we could, if we really wanted to, could scientifically monitor this energy leaving the human body if we really wanted to. I believe everything we talk about, that the possibilities are there. I just, it's such a fascinating subject to me because once I start digging into it, I can't stop. And I don't know if it's just because of the storytelling, like you're talking about, Scotty, it just becomes all these stories. Maybe I'm just fascinated in the stories.
It's funny, actually. I'm reminded of that train that you just talked about.
Yeah.
Scotty, you didn't meet him, Andrew. You've heard us talk about him quite a lot.
Right.
I'm not going to mention his surname. I'm not going to mention what he did or what he and so forth. But he also, as one of his tasks, so he said, was to help the departed to move on. And he referred to a train that he would fill the train each evening with the departed and take them to the next level.
Really?
Mm.
And I have a feeling that something with the washing of the feet, I have a feeling that that means something. That there's a resemblance there that maybe she knows that I don't. I thought maybe you guys might have heard something. I know when I was going through my...
Well, I'm reminded of the biblical story. I'm reminded of Jesus and his feet being washed. Oh, no, Jesus was washing the feet of the others, wasn't he?
Well, he washed the feet of the disciples, but his feet were also washed by the harlot who washed his feet with perfume in her hair.
So that's what I'm reminded of when you talk about washing of the feet.
So, you hear this stuff, and it's it can be rationalized. I think with experiences like this, there has to be a little bit more to it. I just, or maybe I just want it to be. I don't know. Maybe that's where I'm getting confused, is maybe I just personally want it to be more than that.
We want it to be. And I don't think that desiring something great out of it or something wondrous or mystical out of it, the problem is if we act on as if we know that it already is that way and there is no way to qualify that. I think this falls under the line of many things that we've talked about on this show, on Intrepid Radio, on EBN Radio, that we talk about in life and daily experiences, is the fact this would all be really cool if we knew for absolute certainty that it was true. With religion, we can act as if it's true. Many people believe it or blindly believe it or blithely believe it or blissfully believe it. It's their choice, and it's the thing that makes them feel good in life. But if you were to take any of those people and say, do you really believe this? And you were to strip it down, you might have differing answers from some people. You might have people who say, I believe that because my family only has it, or this or that, or whatever. My whole point with this line of thought is that there is belief, and we want things to be the way we want them to be. We want things to be the way we believe them. But many times, the disillusionments in life, the disillusionments in faith, the disillusionments in belief, the changes that we go through are predicated on the fact that we find out maybe there's more to something than we thought, and that maybe belief is based on bliss, blithe blissfulness. It's based on perhaps a bit of ignorance of something. I don't want to know all the facts because I want to believe what I want to believe. And if you present me the facts, then I'm stuck making a decision. Right. Does this make sense or not? It's like the old story of I think I wrote about this, the story of and I heard this from of all people, a Baptist missionary back in my school days. And he was the head of Baptist Mid-Missions, and I do not remember his name. He looked like Santa Claus without a beard, is what I remember him. He told the story of a young missionary that he knew. They went out in the bush in Africa, and he had a medical mission station. The people were getting sick in this village, and they would bring their people to the witch doctor, the village witch doctor, who could not do much for them, and blamed it on spirits or demons or whatever it might be. And I'm whitewashing the story a bit for ease of telling. The doctor said, I have located what this problem is, and if you'll come in and look under the microscope. This was to the witch doctor. He said, I want you to see what this is all about. It's cells, it's germs, it's bacteria. And he showed them in the microscope. So the witch doctor, he said it doesn't really have anything. This is the point the missionary was making, was you don't do this. You don't disregard the religion of the people there. He said the young man was saying to the witch doctor that this is what causes the disease, not demons. It's not something like that. It's curable. So that night, the mission station is broken into, and in the morning they find all the microscopes smashed. The missionary went right to this witch doctor, who he knew was very pompous about this, and he asked him about the smashed microscopes. And he said, did you smash all my microscopes? The witch doctor looked at him and he said, now there are no more germs. So I think when you put life and any of these experiences under microscopes and look at them, you can find the chinks in all the belief system's armors. And when we find out what it might be, there are times that we don't even want to regard that because we don't want to let go of the belief system. Right. I find that in the paranormal a lot. What was that ghost? Well, here's what we found out. That wasn't really a ghost. It was that you were seeing through the window. That was actually the pipe of the old Franklin stove in the kitchen. Yep. Reflecting light off of the chandelier in the dining room, and see how it looks through this lace curtain? Oh, it's a ghost. Mm-hmm. But when in reality it's not, and people don't want to believe that. Right. Oh, no, I still think there's a ghost in that house. Yep. There you go. That's what I think about belief.
But it doesn't really clarify the NDE, though, does it?
It doesn't clarify it at all, and I don't think there's any way to clarify it. I think the best way to clarify it is to sterilize it, and that's where you get down. It's got to be psychological, it's got to be physiological, it's got to be transcendental. It's got to be one of these things, and that transcendental then involves belief system. That's the only way, I think, to get to a solid answer. Now, either you could take me to task on that, or anybody in the radio audience can take me to task on that, but I think that's the only conclusion you can draw if you want to have a hard, fast, black and white answer, because the gray answers are up for grabs.
True. Well, we've done that one then, guys. Right.
I think it's a great conversation. I really do. I think it's a great conversation, and I'm glad you guys were willing to talk about it because, again, if you, like you just said, Scott, if you compare it to the paranormal field, people write their own book on what they choose to believe, and they discredit anything that doesn't coexist with what they want to believe. And
right.
I think we need to make sure we keep our minds open and we can debate this stuff no matter what our personal beliefs are. It's a great topic, and
I think Scotty's actually said the most intelligent thing I've ever heard him say on live radio for the past year and a half. I like sterilize it. I think that's possibly the most intelligent, important one thing you've ever said.
Well, thank you. I think.
Wow.
I think I've rubbed off on you. My job here is done.
Did you shed a tear though? Did you shed a tear? See, his only motive. He's got to go adjust his chakras now.
No, I'm not. I'm wearing my necro pants.
And you know what? That brought us right up to the end of the show. Your necro pants.